Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Derek here of DH Music here with a follow-up or part 2 to my previous video where I talked about how you can keep your Strat style guitar or bridge or whatever, keep the wiggle stick, the whammy bar, the wang bar, whatever you want to call it, keeping it in tune. Hopefully you found my part 1 informative, albeit maybe a little bit controversial. Hopefully it was. I like to challenge conventional wisdom, especially when I can just outright prove it wrong. That's always fun. So anyway, this could be a little follow-up to that video. I mentioned towards the end of the video, because it was already quite long, that there are aftermarket products you can install on your guitar to help keep it a little bit more stable, to help keep the tuning a little bit tighter, or not tighter, but keep it a lot more in check. And one of them in particular, in fact, my favorite one on the market currently, is the Super Vee Mag Lok tremolo anti-deflection device. Now, this is not a sponsored video. They don't even know I exist. But it is a product that I really like, and it's really, really cool for keeping your floating bridges in tune. Now, that's the first little crux of this whole thing. Is this really is only going to help you if you've got a floating bridge. If you hardtail your bridges or set it synchronous, meaning it only dive bombs, you can't go up in pitch, this isn't going to help you really. You're kind of wasting your money. But if you've got a floating bridge and you've noticed some of the issues that I'm about to point out with your floating bridge that every floating bridge has, doesn't matter if it's Floyd Rose, Wilkinson, PRS, Super Vee, it doesn't matter. Every floating bridge, with the exception of the Trem King, but that doesn't really count because that's a completely different system, but pretty much every other floating bridge out there is going to have these problems. If you've noticed them, then this product will fix them to one degree or another. So let's talk about it. So one of the things, as I kind of alluded to in my previous video, is the concept of a pedal steel bend, which we've all heard those. It's really hard to keep those intervals in tune, especially if you have open strings ringing alongside it. It's really hard to get that in tune. Even if you can get the guitar in tune with itself, it may not be in tune with the rest of the band. That's something that all floating bridges have, because again, the whole point of having this thing set up properly is having a balance of spring and string tension. And unfortunately, when you do that, you break that tension or you break that balance every time you increase one factor over the other. That sounds really fancy, but hopefully it makes sense. Whenever you move the whammy bar, you're adjusting the spring tension, which affects the strings. Whenever you bend the strings, you are also going to cause, not really issues, but you're going to cause movement in the spring cavity, because again, everything affects everything with a floating bridge. Something else that happens if you ever try to do drop tuning on a Strat. You notice I had to do some fiddling there to get that in tune. On a hardtail Strat or any other guitar that doesn't have a tremolo, I've got muscle memory to where I can just do a quick flick of the tuner and it's in drop D, and 90% of the time it's perfectly in tune because that's what I've been used to for all these years. But on a floating bridge, whenever I drop the low E string, here's what I'm going to do here. Now the guitar's back in tune. What I'm going to do is drop the low E string, but I'm going to play the middle D string, I guess, and watch what happens to it whenever I'm tuning the low E string. This is going to feel really weird, but listen to what happens. It's hard to get those notes to line up because as I'm lowering the low E string, that's decreasing the string tension, which is causing the springs to pull back. It's causing the bridge to physically pull back, which is making all the other strings go sharp. So it's really, really hard to get the low D string in this case and the regular D string to line up in pitch because they're moving at different intervals. And then even if you can get it close, notice that the rest of the guitar just sounds a little off. close to where the guitar is in tune with itself, but if you play with a band, you might notice that your guitar is out of tune with the rest of the band, because when you adjust one string, it adjusts the rest of them. It's just what happens when you're doing the floating bridge. There's also, if you break a string, the whole guitar is going to go out of tune if you got a floating bridge, because that's just how it works. It's a balance of tension. That's just physics. That's how it all works. Enter the Mag Lok. So all I'm going to do now is put the guitar back in tune. See, I did that, just a quick flick there. Put the guitar back in tune. Seems I bragged a little too early there. And see how the guitar went right back in tune? Whereas earlier it sounded a little off. When everything is balanced and at the 0 point, it's going to stay there. But whenever you adjust that tension, you're going to cause some issues. So what I'm going to do now is install a Mag Lok live before you. I might speed up a little bit, but literally going to install it like right now, because I've had it installed before. I've already got the hole drilled. I don't know if you can see that there, but I've already got the hole drilled, and so that makes it a little easier. So all you do is you insert it into one of the spring holes that's for a spring. Take your screwdriver. In this case, I'm using a Old Faithful, what is this, Rock River screwdriver. Again, not sponsored. Again, I'm not using my workbench or anything. This is actually a pain. Don't do it like this, but this is what I do for you people. Dedication to the cause, am I right? This is almost embarrassing. There we go. See, the problem is it's got a magnet on it, so it wants to move left to right to get to the other springs. That's the excuse I'm using. So now it is installed. All right, so I have the Mag Lok installed now. See, just made the guitar sound more distorted. I don't know if I like it. Just kidding. That's not what did it. So the Mag Lok is installed. You can see how it is there. So how this thing works basically is it uses rare earth magnets to basically reinforce that 0 point that I was talking about. So with the guitar in the 0 position, meaning I'm not touching the whammy bar, it should be in tune. So the guitar's in tune, that's the 0 point. And you can actually feel that. I'm going to turn the volume up on the guitar a little bit so you can really hear that if it comes through. Now, these are not noiseless pickups, and I intentionally use this guitar because you can hear this normally, like on my Lincoln Brewster Strat, you can't. But anyway, so check this out. That little thudding sound, what's happening is that is the magnet releasing back here. Now, I have this adjusted a little bit tighter than it needs to. I drilled the hole just a little bit too far out. So if you install this thing like properly, I think I was using different gauge strings when I did this originally, but you're going to get the idea. Then you shouldn't hear that. And there's some other little things too. If you read the manual, there's different materials you can put inside to get rid of that. But you can definitely feel that, and I think a lot of people really like that because, boy, when that 0 point hits, you can really feel that. You can hear it a little bit as well. Now, that might be a downside for a lot of people. But really, I think that, the trade-off, you're going to have to weigh the cost of benefits. So some people might see that as a little bit of a downside, but now I'm able to do my pedal steel bends. And they're much more in tune than they were beforehand, like this. And that's after. So hopefully you're able to hear that now. And even going to drop D is much more stable. It's still goes out a little bit because, again, it's still a balancing act, but it's much, much closer. Now, I'm going to say that if you know you're going to be going to drop D for a song, I would still recommend maybe if you're going to stay in drop D, putting a thicker low E string on your guitar or something like that. But as you can hear, it's much, much closer. And so now you're able to keep your guitar. You're kind of getting a little bit of the best of both worlds. You're able to do your pedal stands, Still able to do your pedal bends and everything, your drop tuning, and still getting your floating bridge. And it helps keep it much more in tune. So that's pretty much it. If you want a longer video, actually this video might end up being longer than the other one. Steve from Boston, formerly known as Pixie Licks, did a couple of really great videos on the Mag Lok system. I'm going to link that in the description below just because he talks about it a little bit more. And funny enough, he does it in a guitar that looks a lot like this. So, but I think it's a great system if that is really important to you, to be able to do your pedal steel bends. I can't say that tonight. Your pedal steel bends as well as your drop tuning. And still being able to keep a floating bridge. I think it's a great system to use for, $50, $60. Really, really great system. And the guys at Super Vee are really cool as well. So anyway, a fairly quick follow-up. It's about half the length of the last video, I think, something like that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, put it in the comment section below. Feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know every time I upload. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one.